We have a 54-year-old former heavyweight champion in boxing set to get back in the ring. I'm going to tell you who it is and who he's going to face. How about Major League Baseball shooting themselves in the foot yet again? The Toronto Blue Jays will be playing their home games in... Stay tuned. I'm going to let you know. Also, NBA scheduled to restart their season this week and get into the playoffs. How are the optics looking on these games that they have down in Orlando in the bubble? And a story again out of Major League Baseball, a 79-year-old person who was never a player in Major League Baseball, made the biggest splash on opening day. You're in the first round, the place that helps you be smarter than your friends when it comes to sports. Let's get the show started.
You're tuned in to the hottest sports analysis of the week with your hosts Ron Dolbeck and Chris Roberts. And now, here's the first round.
Back live on YouTube after 3 months off. You have found the first round, talking about everything going on in the world of sports. And it seems like 3 months ago we were off the air. We are in temporary studios while our new studios are still under construction. They're going to be amazing. You want to stay tuned for that. But so much going on in the world of sports in a time where you wouldn't think there would be a lot to talk about in the world of sports. Joining me on my left, as he has for the past year, Chris Roberts. And Chris, there is so much to talk about in the world of sports in a time where, no one's going to watch sports.
Yeah, it's so much to talk about now. I mean, at one point, we didn't even think we would have sports.
Right.
So the fact that we're back, we're live, and we're ready, I mean, let's get it going.
Does it seem like we've been off the air for 3 months?
It seems
or does it seem like longer?
It seems like longer than that. I mean, from us being able to get out into the crowd, mingle with everybody, and now for everybody to be in the house on quarantine, it seems like we've been out for like 6 months.
I know it's such a cliche thing. We've probably heard it a million times that 2020 is just like this enigma, pygmy year of oddness and just weird stuff going on. It really seems that way. It seems that way in life. It seems that way in sports. And we just want to get back to reality. Hopefully we can bring some entertainment value when it comes to the world of sports back to you and solidify some reality. Let's get to the top things going on in the world of sports. It's got to start in one place. Major League Baseball gets back to it this week. Chris and I are going to break down the Dodgers and the Yankees, our favorites in the American and National League, other surprise teams that we're looking out for, and what is baseball going to look like. We'll have that for you. The Marlins, 18 players or people on their traveling personnel come up COVID positive as of today. This affects 4 other teams. Rescheduling, canceling of games. What is Major League Baseball going to do about that? Chris and I will get into that more as the show develops. NFL news, Devin Funches, half of the New England Patriots, Marvin Goodwin, wide receiver for the Philadelphia Eagles, and Eddie Goldman, a defensive tackle for the Bears, all opted out of the season. They're not the only ones, just the big names out there that have opted out. Over 7 players from the Patriots alone have decided not to play NFL football this year. Chris and I are going to get into that. How about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers? For an off season where we weren't sure we were going to have football, I think they're the biggest splash, landing Rob Gronkowski and Tom Brady off of my New England Patriots. And everybody is talking about how far they're going to go and that they're the new kids on the block that are going to dominate the NFL. I'm not so sure about that. Chris and I are going to get into our predictions about how Tampa Bay and the rest of the NFL pans out, conference finals and Super Bowl predictions. How about the MMA scene? I think out of all the major sports, the MMA has done the biggest and best job. Signed yesterday, Dana White and UCF announced that Khabib and Justin Gaethje will get it on, probably in Vegas, in October 24th. I'm so much looking forward to that. Chris and I are not only going to talk about that, but Stipe Miocic getting back into the ring with Daniel Cormier August 15th. That trilogy will put a cap to who owns the other one and who has dominance in that 3-fight series. We have predictions on that. Also, I think one thing I wanted to talk about when it comes to MMA is the lineup that they've got for the rest of the year, the undercard of the Stipe fight, and wrapping up Kamaru Usman against Jorge Masvidal that so many people thought was going to be such an awesome fight. I've got thoughts that go in the other direction of that. We will get into that. And having said all those things, Chris, I want to start off in Major League Baseball. And starting with Major League Baseball, the biggest story I want to start with is actually on opening day. We had a 79-year-old who has never played a day of baseball make what I thought was the biggest splash because we had Dr. Anthony Fauci throwing out the first pitch at the Washington Nationals game against the New York Yankees. Did you see that pitch?
Yes.
And how would you describe that pitch? It was somewhere between home and first base.
I mean, he threw the ball like a 79-year-old man who's never played a game of baseball in his life.
Now, this is at the home opener for the World Champions. And you would think that they would have made enough money in the offseason to pay some bright ball that just got zapped out of college to pull this guy ahead of the game,
Right.
have him throw some practice throws so it doesn't go, out over into right field, which is where the pitch went. Now, this is the question that I really want to ask. Whose opening pitch was worse, Fauci or 50 Cent?
I'm going to go with 50 Cent because he's the younger guy. You would think he can somehow get the ball to the plate, but jeez, his was worse too. It's just as bad.
How do you throw a first pitch behind you? Because Fauci's almost went behind him. Oh my gosh, that was so bad. We're glad you're joining us here in the first round. It feels good to be back. When we last saw our heroes, I was on a new fix. Do you remember what I was drinking?
What's that? Limoncello.
Limoncellos.
Right.
But now I'm on limoncello cream, and I add a little limoncello to it,
Okay.
and we'll see what it does. That's going to be gone in the next 2 minutes. Anyway, those were the worst possible results. And then the next day, Topps put out a hashtag Topps Now and put out a one-day only production, 24 hours only, of an Dr. Anthony Fauci baseball card. And I went on eBay. Guess what they're going for? Rough average.
Oh, gosh. How many thousands of dollars? I know it was the highest grossing card they've made to this day. I mean,
they're about $125 a pop right now for a Fauci card with the mask on and the ball going behind him.
That's not bad, even though he almost hit the guys trying to take the picture.
You going to pay $125 for an Anthony Fauci ball?
No.
No, and no one turned in to listen to Anthony Fauci talk. Let's get into Major League Baseball. I want to start it off with the Yankees and the Dodgers. The Yankees in the American League, they're my pick to win the pennant. I think they are the best, most all-around, well-rounded team in the American League. But I want to talk about their concerns. I know in the offseason you're going to say, well, they picked up Garrett Cole because the Yankees are your team, even though they haven't won a world title in over a decade. Where I'm concerned with the Yankees is their pitching staff. So you've got an ace, and we can both say Garrett Cole is your ace. But then you've got Paxton, Tanaka, J.A. Happ, and Michael King. Michael King has pitched one inning last year. He's a relatively unknown guy, and I think they're throwing him to the wolves. J.A. Happ is 37 years old. Last year he had an ERA of 4.91. I'm not sure if I'm hanging my hat on that. Tanaka last year, 3.75, which was better than average. But the story, I think, with Tanaka last year is, one, you got to watch out for injuries. And two, he's super bipolar. He's either lights out for the first 5 rounds or else he gets bombed. And then you've got Paxton, who I think is, he's on the wrong side of 33. He's good for 10 to 12 wins. The pitching staff, to me, is super suspect. And this is even before we get into the fact that Aroldis Chapman has corona. He's going to miss 8 games, 7 or 8, maybe 10 games.
Right.
Betances isn't there anymore. So what does your bullpen look like? So we could talk for all the talk about how awesome that they're going to be hitting-wise, and we'll get into that. The fact that you don't have Sereno, he's got Tommy John surgery, might not even be ready for the 21 season. The starting 5 to me is lackluster at best. And then you go into the bullpen. Where's your middle relief? And Aroldis Chapman, even when he comes back after the coronavirus positive test, I don't think he's the Aroldis Chapman of 4 or 5 years ago, and we can ask Jose Altuve about that. So what are your concerns and what are your positives talking about the Yankees?
Well, I mean, my concerns is the pitching staff as well. However, I think with this condensed season, it works out in their favor because you're not having to go a full 182-game season. So with it being condensed, I think the offense is good enough to take them to carry the pitching staff this year.
A condensed season doesn't mean your 2, 3, 4, and 5 starters get any better.
Well,
We know that pitching wins in playoffs. So you've got, look at all the tandems last year. We had Corbin, we had Strasburg, Max Scherzer, that overcame a Houston team that everybody picked, including me, to win. Pitching wins. So you've got Garrett Cole, and I'll give you that. But then, when you look at your 2, 3, and 4 guys, I think you got question marks around all of them, and Luis Severino's not coming back this year.
Yeah, I mean, you have question marks behind them. I mean, really, what it boils down to is getting Tanaka, getting inside his head to make him actually play consistently. And if we can able to get that consistent play out of Tanaka, I mean, we will have our 1-2 punch with Cole and Tanaka. I mean, Hap. I mean,
he's serviceable,
right? So we can get him to just to go to get to inning 4 or 5. I think we'll be okay.
4 or 5 innings.
Right.
That's the best that I'm saying. So looking at the lineup, you got Aaron Judge, you got Giancarlo Stanton. Good hitters for average, good power hitters, better than average power hitters. My problem with them is Giancarlo Stanton's got to prove that he can stay healthy. Same with Judge. And they're both strikeout magnets. So that's my concern on offense. But looking at the rest, you got Gleyber Torres, you got DJ LeMahieu, you got Giancarlo Stanton hitting home runs. That's a murderer's row. I think the weakest link is Brett Gardner. Somehow he hit like 256 last year and got an $8 million raise from Brian Cashman, who I guess just doesn't care how you spend money. I think they're going to score over 300 runs in these 60 games. But the thing I got to watch out for is the injuries with Giancarlo Stanton and the strikeouts with Aaron Judge and your starting pitching. Otherwise, I've got them winning the AL.
Yeah, I mean, again, with it being a condensed season, I just think that the offense is good enough to actually carry the Yankees this year. I mean, now had it been a full season, I think that's when some of those issues with the pitching staff will actually come into play.
Yeah, I'm talking about the Yankees so much, and I hate their guts. I need alcohol to wash it out. Yeah, you're laughing.
Come on, man. Come on.
I got to get the filth out of my mouth, man.
Come on.
Let's go to the West. In the National League, I've got the Dodgers, which is the pick of 95% of people out there who have a brain and haven't been lobotomized. And I'm going to tell you why I've got the Dodgers to win the World Series. They've got a great coach.
Yeah.
I think Roberts was a former player, Dave Roberts, with the Red Sox. Actually took down you guys in Game 4 of 04 against Mariano Rivera and started the comeback. But besides that, I love their ownership group. I love Dave Roberts. I love their starting pitching, and I love their hitting group. I think they've got a lot of good young hitters. Clayton Kershaw, I'm ready to admit, is on the downside of his career. I think his best years are in the rearview mirror. But Alex Wood, I still like, and what I'm really high on is Walker Buehler. Watch this kid. He is awesome. 14-4 last year, 3.26 on the ERA, 5th overall in the majors with 215 strikeouts. I love this kid. They played the Astros last night. He got the win on the road in Houston. I think he's a lights out kid. And if we're still talking about pitching, Kershaw's still effective. You got Joe Kelly coming over from a couple years removed from being on the Red Sox as a solid frontline starter in the bullpen. And then you still got Kenley Jansen, who can bring the heat. You've got Baez. I love their starting pitching. I think they're solid. I think their starting pitching is better than the Yankees right now. And I'm going to go with pitching beats hitting, even though the Dodgers, I think, have great hitting. They pick up the biggest offseason move, I think, in Major League Baseball in getting Mookie Betts, 12 years, over $300 million, which is a bargain. They've got Max Muncy, Jock Peterson, Justin Turner, and they've got Bellinger. I think they've got a solid 1 through 9. Tell me how you see the Dodgers breaking down this year.
Well, I mean, with the Dodgers, to me, it reminds me of the Buffalo Bills. It remains to be seen. That team could have the best team on any field, on any baseball diamond. However, they always seem to choke in the playoffs. So until they get to the playoffs and actually show me they can win some of these games, I'm just going to hold off reserve on the actual Dodgers.
All right, let's go off the radar a little and talk about teams that are a little bit farther down the feeding trough that we think can win and make a dent this year. Who would be one of your Cinderella picks or somebody that's off the radar that not a lot of people are talking about?
I'm going to go with the Atlanta Braves.
Okay.
I think the Braves, they are a young team. They have a decent pitching. They have some offense, and they did push the eventual champions last year in the playoffs. So I think I'm going to go with the Atlanta Braves as far as my team is being off the radar, getting to the World Series.
My off-the-radar team, if I have to pick one, really isn't that off the radar, but there are two things. One, nobody's talking about him. And two, over the past 15 years, this team that I'm going to mention has done more on the field in terms of wins with less salary than almost anybody in baseball. I'm going with the Oakland A's. Last year, 97-65, a plus 165 run differential. That's amazing. I think they've got the pitching staff and enough solid hitting, good middle rotation. I just think that they're a team that people have got to watch out for, and they can't be underestimated.
Oh, no, they can't. I mean, Oakland is always fielded a team that's definitely up under the radar and definitely way up under the salary cap. And they always
Right, and you can't even name 5 players on their starting lineup
Exactly.
ever. You know who else
Exactly.
does that, I think, really well is the Tampa Bay Rays.
Yeah.
You know, even going back to the Longoria years and when Joe Madden was there and, you know, Archer, and they've just had players there that you never hear of, and then they develop them and bring them up, and they make more out of nothing than almost anybody in baseball. I'm taking the A's to be my team that comes out of nowhere and goes a little bit farther than people think. Let's talk about, I don't really want to spend any time on COVID in the show, Chris, but it's worth mentioning right now because today became the 18th person who is affiliated with the traveling team for the Florida Marlins to come down and test positive for COVID. They had to cancel their game yesterday. They're canceled by Major League Baseball through Monday. This affects 4 other teams, the Yankees, Baltimore, Atlanta, and Washington. It's a rescheduling nightmare for Major League Baseball, who, quite frankly, in the offseason, I don't think has done a good job any way, shape, or form. Whether we're talking about Tony Clark, the president of the Players Association, all the way up to Rob Manfred, who is the commissioner, who does less with more. I mean, I just think that this has been an absolute carnival of insanity that the Major League Baseball has put on in this offseason, getting stuff back, negotiating to see how many games they're going to play, and having protocols in place to ensure, one, the safety of all the players. They didn't even create a bubble. And then when he was interviewed, Rod Manfred said, well, the logistics weren't there. What do you mean the logistics weren't there? NBA basketball is doing it, and they're only playing in one venue.
Right.
If they're able to make it happen, make it happen. You're dealing with a billion-dollar corporation. Find a way to do it. Hire enough bright bulbs that got zapped out of high school that know what they're talking about. Have confidence in them and find a way to make it happen.
Yeah, I think baseball really dropped the ball on this, especially even with this Florida Marlins team. Right now, they're in what's considered a hot spot globally right now.
Right.
In South Florida. I mean, to me personally, I would have actually had the Marlins actually move away from that stadium.
Yeah,
to be
have them
out of
play
that
in
hot
Nebraska.
spot. Yeah, I would have definitely moved them away from that stadium just to not only for their protection, but for protection of the other members of the teams that are actually going to play.
Right,
this
going
year.
to the hotels, going to
Yes.
the restaurants, getting the Ubers,
Right.
being in the Miami airports,
Yes, right.
touching windows, touching luggage, touching stuff everybody
Yes.
else has been touching. No, we're not going to do that. We're going to have them play in the 305 because that makes sense. And that's what we do in Major League Baseball. We're not going to listen to guys that are doing a podcast who say, go out to Nebraska where there's hardly anything going on because you're not having any fans anyway.
I mean, hey, you're already playing in the Field of Dreams. I mean, what's so hard about going out to Nebraska?
I can't understand it. Something else I can't understand is in the National League, going back to the World Champions, the Nationals this year, how they're looking. I'm looking at it and I'm saying, okay, so you've got Scherzer, you've got Strasburg, you've got Corbin. I like that in your pitching rotation. But as far as repeating, I can't see it happening. I don't even see a path to glory that they can make it to the World Series. And I'm going to tell you why. Because when I look at the Washington Nationals right now, I'm asking myself one question, Chris. Where and how are you manufacturing runs? Just since they won last year, Juan Soto, out 10 to 12 days positive for COVID. Ryan Zimmerman, opt out of 2020. He's probably just going to retire. Joe Ross, pitcher, opts out, not going to play. Catcher, Trey Barea, suspended 80 games by Major League Baseball drug infraction. And the biggest one of all, you lost your third baseman, Anthony Rendon, who goes in free agency and signs with the Anaheim Angels, not the California Angels. I'm never going to get past that. So they lose a lot of runs, RBIs. They lose some pitching in there. Luis Soto will come back, but how much is that going to cost them? I don't know how they're going to be scoring runs. I leave it up to you to tell me.
They're not. They're really going to have to depend on their defense to actually win these games. And then when you look at Washington too, if it's not a pitcher, they don't like to spend money to get some of these big name players, get some of these players that actually come in that can actually generate runs, that can actually help, Strasburg or to help these pitchers out. And that's something that they have to get out of that mindset. They have to go and open up those purses to be able to compete with some
they
of
got to
these
spend the
big
money,
name teams,
right?
like the Dodgers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they got to spend money.
Yeah.
Spoken like a real Yankee fan, folks, right there. The answer is always just reach into daddy's kitty and spend your way to a World Series. Don't develop players from your minor league and your AAA system and your farm system like the Boston Red Sox do. No, we're just going to go buy talent from everybody else after they've developed them and then call ourselves the champion. This is the kind of commentary you get from Yankees fans. You know what? Feel free the rest of the show just to mute it anytime I go to Chris, because this is the kind of logic you're going to get. Speaking of logic, let's go out of Major League Baseball and talk about the NBA. They've got an 8-game schedule coming up that resumes Thursday night.
Right.
Utah somehow is taking on New Orleans with Zion Williamson, and the Clippers somehow are taking on the Lakers. This doesn't seem completely manufactured, but the commissioner of basketball, Adam Silver, knows about marketing and who people want to see. And right now they want to see Zion get back to save the NBA's numbers. And they want to see LeBron and the clip joint. I think this is a good move, but it is a little manufactured, no?
Yes, I mean, of course it is manufactured. I mean, this is what.
Of course it is. I need another
This
drink.
This is what people want to watch the NBA for. He wants to give Silver wants to give you what you want, when you want it, so you can kind of get back into the groove, into the swing of things. And I think this is going to be great for the NBA.
All right, well, speaking of get back in the swing of things, let's talk about who we like in the Eastern Conference. Right now, I think it's a 3-team race. Milwaukee, surprisingly, Toronto, and my 17-time world champions. Can you say 8, Pete? Because my guys won it 8 times in a row. That's it. I'm not going to the 50s and 60s to pull out my stats anymore. I think all 3 of these teams are the only ones in the Eastern Conference. Yeah. And then it's just a bunch of guys take a lottery ticket. The 76ers, the Heat. I don't think either of those teams have enough talent, enough ammunition in the gun. I think the 76ers are bipolar as hell. They can't figure out how they want to play Embiid with Ben Simmons. Is Embiid a 3-point shooter at 7 foot? I think they're a mess. I think it comes down to Boston and Toronto and Milwaukee. I think in the Eastern Conference Finals, if we get to that point and COVID doesn't screw it up, I think you're looking at Milwaukee and Boston. I think Boston's a little bit too young. They're probably a year away. I've got Milwaukee coming out and going to the finals in the Eastern Conference.
I actually only see it as a 2-team race, and that's between Milwaukee and Boston. I think with Milwaukee, you have Giannis, who's the MVP. You have Chris Middleton there, who's his number 2. And, I mean, right now, before, we shut down, these guys are already leading with with the best record in the NBA right now. So,
but they did that last year, and then in the conference finals against Toronto, they absolutely melted like an ice cube in an oven.
Well, you had Kawhi, who just had a ungodly playoff. This guy was just making
Kawhi
everything.
being in the West now is the X factor to them being the best. Because I think Milwaukee is the best team.
Yeah, because really, when you look at it last year, Kawhi was the best player in the playoffs last year. I can't say the regular season because, Giannis did what Giannis does, or offense and defense. But in the playoffs, what it came down to, Kawhi let us know that he has that Kobe mentality. It's by any means necessary. I'm going to pull my team to a victory.
Right, and we absolutely saw that happen. He took him to win a title somehow with if all those injuries don't happen, and I don't like playing the if card, Golden State takes them in 5, but that was a lot of injuries to Golden State. Doesn't take anything away from Kawhi. I still think Kawhi is one of the top 3 players in the NBA. Let's go out to the West. I've got the Clip Show, and I've got the Lakers as the top 2 teams. And then in my second bracket, I've got Utah, Denver, Houston, OKC, and Dallas. You can just reach your hand into the bag to see who's 3 there and pull out a random ball. I think they're all pretty much really close. I think that obviously the talent in the West is the Clip Show and the Lakers. Out of those 2 teams, break down who you've got. You've got them in the conference finals, right?
I have them in the conference finals with a caveat. I think Denver has a chance to knock off one of these teams, to be honest with you. Mm-hmm. I think Denver has the talent. I think Jokic is going to take his game to another level. You have a guy who can step out, who can shoot threes. He's a possible triple-double per night type of player, and I think with his ability to play defense and offense is going to cause trouble for both teams. So I really think that Denver can, in a sense, knock off one of these teams if they're not careful.
I think that could happen, but let's talk about the Lakers and the Clippers. They'll be playing Thursday night. Overall, and we've gotten into it with our new co-host, Joe, who will be joining us in a couple weeks here on the first round. I give a slight edge to the Clippers, and I'm going to tell you why. Starting five, I give the talent to the Clippers. I think Patrick Beverley is a lights-out, lockdown defensive player. I think Paul George and Kawhi are just as good a combination as LeBron and AD. I think LeBron got a huge break not having to play a full season. Last year, we saw him with a groin injury be out for 6+ weeks. It cost them, and I just think he kind of mailed it in last year anyway. But I think they have a better starting five. Think they have a better bench. I'm going to take Doc Rivers over Frank Vogel every single day and twice on Sundays. I think the GM position, I give the nod to the Clippers because I think Jerry West is one of the best GMs ever, and I think Steve Ballmer is one of the best owners ever. Organizationally, I give the nod to the Clippers. I think when you look at the Lakers organization, you don't even know who's running it. Is it LeBron James? Is it his agent? Is it Kurt Rambis? Is it, there's Rob Pelinka? I don't know who's running it. Is it Jeannie Busk pulling the trigger? Nobody knows who's in charge. I don't know what's going on there. And it's the game is played on the floor. I understand that. But when you look at the organization top to bottom, starting five, I give it to the Clippers. Total team, I give that edge to the Clippers and the bench to the Clippers. Coaching, I give the edge to the Clippers. Doc Rivers has already proven he can get to the finals multiple times. He's also won a championship, and he played. Frank Vogel has done a grand total of nothing. Organizationally, the GM and upstairs in the front office, I give both those nods to the Clippers. I've got the Clippers at a 2 or 3 notches above the Lakers right now.
Well, I mean, a lot of people forget that Frank Vogel, at the time the coach of Indiana, had it not been for the Miami Heat, he would have took Indiana to the finals. A lot of people forget about that.
Well, if I had two wheels and a chain, I'd be a bicycle.
I mean, not only would he have taken them to the finals, but even there with that big three, they actually pushed Miami to like Game 7. Like 2 seasons in a row.
What's he won?
So, huh?
What has he won?
But I'm just saying. I mean, a lot of people.
You're not making a case that Frank Vogel's a better coach than Doc Rivers. He's not even light years close.
I didn't say that. What I'm saying is Frank Vogel is a better coach than what a lot of people are actually giving him credit for. He's actually pretty good coach. He's actually pretty decent, defensive-minded coach.
Decent doesn't win championships.
But again, he's a defensive-minded coach, and I think when it comes down to that in the playoffs, if he could get some of these guys to buy in, minus J.R. Smith, because J.R. Smith is just out there in space somewhere.
He is. I mean, that was like so much excitement on the internet about picking up J.R. Smith and Dion Waiters. I mean, look, this is what I hear about the Lakers, is their bench isn't that bad. Kuzma is averaging 12 points a game. Danny Green, 8 points. Caruso, 5 points. Caldwell Pope, 9 points. Dion Waiters, 9 points. And most of those were where he had a lot more playing time, Dion Waiters, before he got to than he's going to get right now with the Lakers. Does that sound like a lights-out bench? You're going to rely on Kuzma, who's either going to score 25 or 6. Danny Green, he's a three-point assassin. That's it. He's not going to penetrate. He's either shooting a three-pointer or that's it. And Caruso, 5 points a game. That's what you're hanging your hat on. Caldwell Pope at 9 points a game. They traded away all their young talent, dynamic players. They have a shady, iffy, decent, middle-of-the-road coach. I just don't think there's enough ammunition in the gun. You can call me crazy, but I think that the Clippers are just a better, well-rounded team with more talent, with a better head coach. I see them going to the finals against Milwaukee.
Well, I mean, again, it is going to be a David versus Goliath battle.
And who do you got?
With that, I mean...
Clippers or Lakers?
On paper, the Clippers are the better team.
And who's your pick?
My pick is that series, actually, to me, I believe that series will go down to a Game 7, splitting hairs. I go with the Clippers. I get the Clippers the nod, but I believe that series will go to a 7-game series.
I think it's a 6-game series. I think the Clippers take it. There's so much internet hype around the Lakers, and when I start seeing internet hype, my little spidey senses start going off.
Well, I mean,
when all the the people that know so much start going, oh yeah, it's they start talking about all the hype. What was all the hype at the beginning of the season, Chris? New Jersey Nets.
Well,
New Jersey Nets was all the hype.
It was all the hype, but people thought KD was coming back as well, but he didn't come back.
Okay,
So,
I don't see the hype. I didn't see the hype without KD because you still had Kyrie.
I mean, you had Kyrie, but I mean, they were expecting, okay, KD will come back sometime during the season.
They were talking about world championships all over the internet with the Nets. That's crazy. Come on, man. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. I think it's going to be interesting. Let's talk about the optics of these games. It looks like a Euro Sanford & Son pickup game when I'm watching these games. It's really hard to create synergy with basketball right now down in Orlando in the bubble. Or is it just me?
Maybe it's just you. I mean, to me, it reminds me of looking at NBA 2K with the video game people in the stands. I'm sitting here, I'm looking at the game, I'm like, okay.
But some of these games are not pumping in crowd sound, and it's just, I don't know, man. I'm not feeling it. I'm not. I think baseball and actually EuroLeague soccer is doing a great job pumping in crowd noise and cheers and boos, and it's at least creating an atmosphere where I feel like it's more authentic, even though I know no one's there. But when I watch these basketball games, frankly, it looks like a pickup game right now. And, okay, it's scrimmages. They're not really playing. But this is NBA. You got to get back into shape. You got to be playing. It's only an 8-game season before the playoffs start. I just thought it would be better quality basketball. And right now it looks like the all-star game.
Well, I mean, right now what you have to also look at, too, is this actually brings a lot of these guys back to how they played the game when they were growing up. A lot of these guys played in AAU tournaments. And, if you ever been to an AAU tournament, there's like only 10 people in the crowd, maybe, because there's so many different games going on. There were so many different courts and whatnot. So it actually reminds you of an old AAU game. If you ever go and watch those games,
Yeah.
I tell you, go.
It's like a pickup game at the gym.
Right. So just go to say the Gator basketball camp over the summer. If you go and look at those Gator basketball camps, and you look at that NBA game, you put them side by side, they're the same exact game.
Do something to keep me interested. Honestly, you got billions of dollars. They're spending over $100 million to do this whole thing down in Orlando. Figure out a way to make it entertaining. It's just to have a confetti shoot off for a three-pointer or something.
I don't know.
Because right now it's just not. It's not blowing any wind up the skirt, man. Honestly.
Man, just bring in some of the dancers, the ladies, like the Heat ladies, the Heat dancers. Bring in some of the Magic dancers.
That right there
The
is what I'm.
Lakers girls.
Chris just came up with the best idea he's had in 3 months. Bring in the dancers wearing stilettos, drinking limoncello. That's
There
the
you
answer
go.
right there. I'm tuning in
go.
right there. I don't even care if they score. The Celtics get beat 110-3. I don't care.
But there you have
I got limoncello, stilettos, and heels. There's nothing wrong with hot women dancing. That's great. Hey, if you are joining us for the first time here in the first round, we want to say thank you also to our 515 subscribers. Appreciate you so much. If you haven't subscribed, smash the subscription button right now. You can follow us in a bunch of different ways. Follow us on Twitter at the first round, then the number 1. Or you can reach us here at the show with questions or comments that you want to get on the air. The first round RD at gmail.com. Also, hit the notification button. We're going to be putting out 2 shows a week, loading them up on Monday nights and Thursday nights. It's a good way to be a part of the show, and hit the subscription button. Become a part of our family here in the first round. Tell your friends about the first round. Help grow us to epic proportions. Hopefully, we're entertaining. We try to do our best. Talking about that, I want to talk about something that's truly entertaining moving into the UFC. I can't brag about Dana White and the organization and what they do. I talked about it before we went off the air. I'm going to talk about it now. They're the only major sports organization who kept sports good. They built an island halfway around the world, and they still gave us amazing fights. That's what I think is so amazing. Yesterday, Dana White comes out and announces through UFC that Khabib Nurmagomedov, which I can't stand trying to pronounce that, but I think I just nailed it, is going to fight 22-2 Justin Gaethje, coming off a huge win against Tony Ferguson. Fight's going to happen on October 24th, probably in Vegas, either that or Fight Island. Either one, I'll take it. I think this is going to be a monster fight. Khabib at 28-0. I can't see a flaw in his game. If I had to say there was a deficiency even, it would be in power striking.
Yeah.
But if he gets you to the ground, it's over. I think he's got awesome wrestling skills, grappling skills. His defense is on par. He's fast. He's super smart. He's dedicated. He doesn't have any ego. He's mature. Stop me when it gets old. This is why the guy is 28-0.
Oh, no. He is 28-0, and he is just that good. However, I think Justin Gaethje is probably one of the better fighters in the UFC that could actually, give him a run for the money when it comes down to grappling. So I think this is actually going to be a pretty good fight.
And I think Justin Gaethje has a chin of absolute reinforced steel. I mean, this guy can take a fight, punch. He is tough. I think that just look at the fight against Tony Ferguson. Coming off of his last 5 fights, he's won 4 of them. Beat Tony Ferguson. Then he defeated Cowboy Cerrone, who I think is on the wrong end of his career, but he was a great fighter for about 15 years. Edson Barbosa got rid of him and beat James Vick. The last time he lost, you'd have to go back to April of 2018 against Dustin Poirier, who I think is one of the best technical fighters the UFC has and has a heart of steel, fighting out of Louisiana, doing a lot of great things for the charities down there in Louisiana. Check out Dustin's website. He is an awesome guy. But, again, Dustin went over to Fight Island in Abu Dhabi and took on Khabib, and Khabib put him to sleep real quick. And we're talking about a guy who has a punch. He also has a chin. He's been proven for years in the UFC as one of the toughest fighters, and Khabib handled him pretty well. That would be, I think this matchup, it's going to go the way of Khabib, I believe, on October 24th, probably in Las Vegas. That's who I'm going with. But I think you're right. I think if anybody out there in this weight division could give Khabib a run for its money, it's going to be Justin Gaethje. I can't wait to actually see this fight.
Yeah, me either. I actually want to see, how Justin Gaethje actually prepares for Khabib's ground game because, as you noted earlier, he's not really a power puncher. So if he's able to be able to prepare and get himself ready for that ground game, I can see this going all 5 rounds.
It could, and I think if it does, it's going to be an absolute bloodbath if it does go 5 rounds. Chris, I got a question for you. Who is the most hyped fighter in the past 12 months when I say UFC?
I'm going to give with Masvidal, Jorge Masvidal.
Jorge Masvidal. That's who I would say also. Now, he had a great win in NYC against Nate Diaz.
Yes, right.
Very convincing, and I think it was an anomaly, the 5-second knockout of Ben Askew months before that. But still, you have to give him credit. He's been around forever. Right. But when we heard about Dana White coming out and saying, hey, he's stepping in on 7 days' notice to fly halfway across the world, cut 21 pounds to make weight, and fight Kamaru Usman, the internet again went wild.
Yes.
Everybody couldn't wait for this. And there was so much hype out there for this fight, especially 80, 75% on the Masvidal side. And you can go to our Twitter account, at the first round 1 on Twitter. It's a good follow. About 15 minutes before the fight, I predicted that Usman would win the fight. Tactical and experience over hype. And that's exactly what happened. What I saw, just to recap that fight from July 11th, was Masvidal's back was making out with the fence about 60% of that fight. And tactically, Kamaru Usman showed why he is the champion because he dominated, I think, in every facet of that fight.
Yeah, he dominated in every facet of that fight. And I think when it came down to Masvidal, I didn't know that he cut that much weight that quickly in order to make that fight.
Yeah.
They need to actually have a rematch. I think if they were to have a rematch, I think we have a better fight.
Chris.
I think so.
Come on.
I didn't know he did that cut that much weight.
Yeah, it was like 10 or 11 days he cut that much weight. But that's a rematch, I don't need a rematch on this one, Boo.
That's a lot, right?
It is a lot, but that's also an excuse. And I don't want excuses, reasons, or alibis. Why didn't you? Look, if I had to define Jorge Masvidal's performance, there's no way you could argue it was non-combative. It was low energy. It was defensive-minded. I mean, he was up against the fence 65% of that fight. Let me give you some stats just on that fight and how this went out. Time and controlled by Usman 80% of the fight. Significant strikes, Usman outstruck him 94-66. Overall punches thrown tells the whole story, 263-88. Kamaru Usman outpunched him. Takedowns, 5-0. Kamaru Usman. Come on.
I'm just gonna put my science cap on here. I mean, that's a lot to take in, and then actually get in there and actually fight. I mean, I agree with you.
I don't want
I agree
to
with
hear it.
I agree with you. He got
I don't
brutalized.
want to hear
He
it.
got beat down.
That's
I mean,
it. I don't need a rematch.
But I think, if they have another rematch where this guy actually has time.
Oh gosh,
He
come
has-
on,
he
man.
has-
You're fighting for a belt, dude.
It doesn't matter.
You're fighting for over $500,000.
Ron, you can have the biggest heart in the world, but physically,
No, sorry,
that takes
effort.
its toll on you,
Nope.
man.
For all the talk, you
takes
didn't
its
back it
toll.
up, man. That's it.
No, he
Didn't back it up. Next for Kamaru Usman, Dana White comes out and says he is getting the Gilbert Burns fight, which he was scheduled to fight. The only reason they brought in Jorge Masvidal, Burns comes down with COVID. I think that's going to be an absolute bloodbath also. I've got Kamaru Usman in that one too, because until you beat the king, he is the king.
Right.
And I think he is a 5-tool guy. I mean, he's defensively proficient. He can strike. He can take you down. He's got power punches. He's super intelligent. I just think that he's got to be in my top 5 pound-for-pound fighters right now in the UFC. Let's look ahead to August 15th. Stipe Miocic, the current heavyweight champ, takes on, for the third time, Daniel Cormier in their trilogy. I think this is going to be an absolute coin flip. I love heavyweight fights because with these two guys, they know what they're doing. They can take punches. They can deal them. Somebody can put somebody to sleep 5 seconds into it, or it can go 5 rounds and we can have 25 minutes of absolute exciting fight. That's what I'm looking for in this one.
Yeah, I mean, that's what you're looking for. I mean, I really am actually, ready to see Daniel Cormier get back in the ring. I mean, he's been doing a lot of commentating lately, and
we thought he was retired. We thought he was done.
Really, you did. You really thought it was over.
They brought me back.
They pulled him back
They
in.
pulled him back.
So I actually want to see, how this fight pans out.
Who do you got in this fight? If you have to, your house is on the line right now.
I think Cormier. He's a great fighter, but I don't think
You're
he
leaning
wins
to
this fight.
Stipe?
Yeah, I don't think he wins this fight. I think Cormier's been out for a while.
I think Cormier has got to use his wrestling techniques. He can take a punch. We've seen that. He can definitely deliver a punch. But what sets him apart from the rest of the heavyweights in that division is the fact that he's got wrestling skills unlike any other. And I think if he gets Stipe down, it's going to come down to that, whether Stipe can get back up immediately, because otherwise Daniel Cormier, he'll put him to sleep.
Well, I mean, yeah, again, it does. I mean, with MMA, you have to have a ground game. So if your ground game is weak, I mean, it could be lights out for you.
This is what I love about the UFC. Also on that card that night, Junior Dos Santos steps into the ring. I'm looking forward to that. Frankie Edgar, a well-known guy, but probably the best years are on the rearview mirror. Still could be an exciting fight. I'm not sure how excited I'm going to get for that. And Sean O'Malley, somebody who I think is a fast, rocketing star going up the UFC charts right now that not a lot of people know about. He's fighting at 135, and he's 12-0. You got to watch out for this kid, Sean O'Malley. He's got high energy. He's got a great personality, but beyond that, he's got a power punch, and he's got skills. He's got the skills to back up all the mouth. That's a guy you want to look out for. Speaking of MMA and boxing, we talked at the top of the show about a 54-year-old former heavyweight champion coming out of retirement to fight I guess you could say an exhibition match. It's Mike Tyson. Iron Mike Tyson at 54 years of age has gotten tired and bored of his marijuana farm and doing his podcast called The Hot Box here on YouTube. And he is signed to step back in the ring to fight Roy Jones Jr. And we know boxing makes up the fight. The style makes up the fight. You've got a guy with pretty good skills and definitely an A-plus power punch against a guy who had lights out skills and can still deliver a punch and take one in Roy Jones Jr. These guys have been out of commission for so long. I don't know what we're getting. I know one thing. I'm excited for it. I'm going to watch it. I don't know who's going to win, but I kind of don't care. I want to get entertained, and I think this is actually a really good move for both these guys.
I mean, I think it's a good move. I mean, with this, a lot of people actually forget about how good Roy Jones really was. The guy held a belt in 4 different weight classes. 4. We see Mike Tyson. We think about the quick knockouts, the quick first round knockouts.
Right.
We see what he did to someone like a Carl Williams or a Larry Holmes or Spinks. I mean, you see those quick knockout punches, and you see Mike Tyson in like the Hangover movies. So quite frankly, he's fresh on everybody's mind.
Yeah, but look at the pictures we had up. Tyson 2 years ago was quite frankly a little out of shape and looking like the Pillsbury Doughboy. 54 years old now. He looks like a ripped monster, and the stuff he's been throwing out on his social media, the speed is there. Maybe the desire's there. I don't think he can contend with, Joshua and the guy Tyson Fury and the guys that are out there now. But to get him back in a ring in a competitive fight, I'm absolutely looking forward to it. My interest is absolutely piqued.
Oh yeah, my interest is peaked too. I mean, I just hope that that Roy Jones is actually prepared for this fight, because the last time I saw Roy Jones, he that was with Joe Kozlowski, and the guy actually just picked Roy apart. So my whole thing is, Roy, I mean, I want you to be in shape. I want you to be safe in that ring, and I'm looking to see a very interesting and fun fight.
Oh, I'm actually looking forward to it big time. Switching notes now to the NFL. A lot of news, especially today. My team got hit harder in the NFL, the New England Patriots, than anybody else out there. Talk about all the opt-outs. Marcus Cannon on the offensive line. Patrick Chung, star linebacker. Deontay Hightower goes out. Running back Brandon Bolden goes out. That's not even the whole list either.
Right.
Also, Devin Funchess, wide receiver for Green Bay. Marcus Goodwin, wide receiver out of Philadelphia. And Eddie Goldman, defensive lineman for the Chicago Bears, of notable guys that said they were opting out of the season for the NFL. Hopefully, baseball is providing a template for things that might happen so we can get in a whole NFL season. But just with that right there, I mean, look, as a Patriots fan, I'm hoping for 8-8. I don't think we're going to, be setting the world on fire. And also in the offseason news, obviously we picked up Cam Newton on a sweet deal of a contract, a one-year thing. I have been asked about this so much being a Patriots fan that I'm kind of actually sick of tired of talking about it. I do not think Cam is the answer. He is not the answer. He is a stopgap measure to see if Stidham can do, they were super high on Stidham last year. I think he's got upside. I don't think we have Super Bowl aspirations. I think we're just buying time with a backup, and we'll see what Cam has. I'm not hoping for a miracle, because you still got to look at our offense. We don't have a proven tight end. We've drafted 2 guys. We don't know what they have. Julian Edelman was hurt most of the season. Sanu is on the wrong side of 33, and the best years, that his prime years, are in the rear view mirror. And then you've got N'Keal Harry, who was on the IR last year. I still don't know if he's a deep threat or a speed threat or what I have out of him. And Jacoby Myers, again, a rookie last year. So bringing in Cam doesn't solve the puzzle for my New England Patriots. And I'm saying 8 wins this year, especially with their schedule. I mean, if you look at their schedule, it's absolutely probably one of the hardest schedules. And again, I don't want the email getting blown up, thefirstrroundrd@gmail.com, with any more comments about how they play in a weak division. The Bills are a playoff caliber team. The Jets are going in the right direction. Last year, their starting quarterback had mono and was out for 6 weeks. And as bad as the Dolphins were at the beginning of last season is as good as they were at the end of last season. They were motivated. Flores has them going in the right direction. They got an awesome draft. They went up to Foxborough and beat the Patriots when the Patriots, all they had to do was beat a really bad Dolphins team in December at home to get a first-round bye in the playoffs, and they weren't able to do it. So I don't think the AFC East is the bottom dwellers. I would say that's got to be the AFC West at this point.
Yes, definitely the AFC West. I mean, because nobody's contending with Kansas City.
No, nobody's out there. And you don't know what you're getting with Denver. They still have to find a quarterback. I think the Raiders are a carnival of insanity, especially after last year. They've super overpaid for their quarterback, Derek Carr. They had AB there in that whole fiasco. It's a GM nightmare. I don't know what I'm getting with them. And then Kansas City is obviously the class of that division.
Yes.
And who am I forgetting in the division?
You have,
Chargers?
Chargers, yeah.
The Chargers, yeah. So they've got a rookie quarterback coming in, and we'll see how he pans out. But until then, it's the Tyrod Taylor show. I don't know. They're very unproven. I just think that the NFC West is a weak division. What everybody has been talking about in the NFL offseason is where my hero, Tom Brady, went to, which is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I'm just going to start it off right now by saying I think there is way too much hype and Super Bowl talk. Super Bowl talk. A 43-year-old guy comes in there with a questionable offensive line. Then they hire Gronk, and that just amplified the Super Bowl talk. What in the actual hell are these people talking about Super Bowl? Last time I checked, they went 2-6, the Bucs last year at home, and 7-9 overall. And I know they had the interception magnet, Jameis Winston, but he did account for some rushing, and he did account for some touchdowns. Am I crazy to say that these people are on the crazy train when they talk about Tampa going to the Super Bowl? Because I don't see it.
No, actually, the people actually got a point, though. I'm going to tell you why.
Okay, you got to convince me.
It's not going to be based on the offense. It's going to be based on Tampa Bay's defense. Tampa Bay's defense last year ranked in the top 5 in of other teams' passing percentage. They also ranked in top 5 in yards per play. They ranked top 5 in actually runs per yards per carry. They ranked in the top 5 in actually run defense. Same thing in pass defense. I mean, this defense is actually better than what a lot of people think of when you think of Tampa Bay. You have to look at last year with 30 turnovers. That hurts the defense because what does that do? That pulls, as soon as the offense gets out there, turn the ball over, guess what? The defense is right back out there. I think with Tom Brady being on that team, he's going to be able to stabilize the offense somewhat. They still have to find a running game.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say Gronk is going to be the superhero that comes in to save the day because I think Gronk
hasn't played in a year and a half.
Right.
Is possibly out of shape.
Right.
Wasn't effective the last year he was in New England.
Yes, and I think that with that offense with Mike Evans and I can't think of the other wide receiver, Chris Goodwin there. I mean, I think they have enough pieces around there to give Brady enough pieces to actually make the offense work.
Let's talk about whether their offense can work. They bring in rookie running back Keyshawn Vaughn. They have their number 1 running back as Ronald Jones III. He's going to be in his 3rd year. He's played 25 games in 2 years in the league. He's averaged 3.9 yards a carry, which I don't think is going to get it done, in 7 touchdowns total. 7 touchdowns in 25 games. The question I have with the offense is A, at running back, and it suffers at running back because of B, their offensive line. They bring in a rookie, Tristan Wirfs out of Louisville, who's a rookie, but last year they averaged 30th in the NFL in rushing. 30th. Because their rushing game was so terrible, that means bad protection. They allowed 47 sacks last year. 47. Now, you got a 43-year-old guy back there, and I have said all offseason, Tom Brady is one missed assignment off that, I'm very highly skeptical, offensive line from getting his head bent back like a Pez dispenser and being in the AARP shuffleboard courts. I'm super skeptical of this offensive line. This is not me hating on Tom Brady. He gave us a great 20-year run. I wish him success, but I don't see him making it to the Pro Bowl, and the offensive line is the main reason why. Last year, that offensive line caused Jameis Winston to scramble and run for his life 59 times. Tom Brady isn't going to get past that offensive line running 5 times. He's just not going to happen. He's 43. They allowed 47 sacks. Last year, Tom Brady the Pats only gave up 28 sacks. And only 24 of those were when Brady was in the game. They've almost given up double that, the offensive line in Tampa. Here's the other thing. They averaged 30th in the NFL in rushing. 30th. I'm super concerned. Gronk is not the answer. He hasn't played for a year and a half. He's 31 years old. I don't know if he's in shape. And the last year he was there, in 2019, he had 47 receptions for 3 touchdowns. Those aren't exactly Pro Bowl stats, so I don't see him as the savior. I don't even see Tom Brady as the savior. I think Tom Brady is going to have a lot of short out throws or screens, because he's not going to have a lot of time to deal with being back there with that offensive line. I think the best thing that he brings to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers is his mind. getting up there at the offensive line, reading the defense, possibly calling an audible, and I think that he's actually saving Byron Leftwich's job, who is the OC down there.
Yeah, I mean, that's another thing that Brady's bringing to the table is the fact that he is able to read defenses. He has that experience reading defenses. I think what the X factor really is going to be in that game is the tight end situation that they do have in it. We're taking Gronk out of that situation.
O.J. Howard, they were trying to trade him for the past 2 years.
But you have
he's a bust.
You have O.J. Howard, a big
bust
guy, runs sub 440,
and everybody in the NFL knew he was on the trading block, and nobody picked him up.
Bust. Sub 440. Actually, I think with Brady and with Leftwich and with Bruce Arians, I believe they could put O.J. Howard in situations where he can actually win.
How come he wasn't in those situations the last 2 years? They're not happy with him. They were trying to trade him for a bag of donuts. Come on.
Because you don't have a player like Tom Brady who actually knows how to use those tight ends like you, a tight end with speed like an Aaron Hernandez. That he has the potential to be like an Aaron Hernandez type of player.
Let's go to their schedule real quick. They got New Orleans twice. They've got Green Bay, Kansas City, Minnesota, the Rams, and at Chicago. All those right there, out of those 7 games, those are all potential losses. That's what's got me concerned about them making the Super Bowl. People talking about Tampa making it to the Super Bowl and winning need to break the Prozacs in half. I don't see it happening this year. Here's my other reason why. Let's just talk about teams in the NFL starting day 1 right now, week 1, that are better, that we know are better than Tampa Bay. How about San Francisco, Kansas City, Baltimore, Green Bay, Minnesota, Dallas?
Okay.
They're all better right now. So how are we elevating Tampa with a 43-year-old quarterback and a suspect offensive line, and then we're throwing all of our jelly beans into the bag of Gronk, who hasn't played in a year and a half. I don't know what kind of shape he's in. He only had 47 receptions for 3 touchdowns a year and a half ago with the Patriots.
Well, I mean, what people are looking at, Ron, is they're looking at the whole team on the spectrum.
Hype. They're looking at hype.
Without the turnovers from last year. To give you a quick stat. Tampa Bay had 7 games where, had there not been a turnover by some said person at quarterback, they could have won those games.
But they didn't. They were 2-6. Look, facts. You're giving me hypotheticals. You're giving me hypotheticals because they were 2-6 at home.
Ron, what I'm saying is, with them having a better quarterback, there, because
who's 43?
He can be 43 all he wants. He's still better than Jameis Winston.
I agree he's better than James Winston. Let's turn the page on the NFL. Washington Redskins going to change their name. I'm putting up the Washington Union. The Union disavowed, and got rid of slavery. Union bringing together. I think Washington Union is my candidate of choice for the name change. What have you got?
I actually like the Union, but again, we're dealing with Dan Snyder. So, I mean, next thing you know, it may be the Washington Chippewas or something like that. Something crazy.
Okay, next thing on let's go quick right here. Jamal Adams. 2 number 1s for Jamal Adams. Big price to pay for Seattle. I don't think it gets him to the Super Bowl.
It doesn't get him to the Super Bowl, but you get a great player, a great safety in his prime. What can they do with it though?
I think they got a 2-year window, because in 2 years he's going to want that monster contract. Lamar Jackson comes out today on ESPN, says he wants the GM there in Baltimore to bring in one player. Who is it? Antonio Brown. Yes or no on bringing Antonio Brown into Baltimore?
Only if he gets his issues under control.
Oh, come on. Chemistry, man.
He has to get his issues under control.
Chris, can we agree? He's a head case.
He's a head case.
You can't fix it. I don't see any evidence that's gotten fixed, except for he's been off social media for the past 5 or 6 months. But everybody has. There hasn't been anything to talk about. The first week he shows up with a mink coat and $16 million worth of diamond rings and 15, dogs on chains. He shows up to camp, and that's it. You're gone.
I have, I actually have more faith in Harbaugh than I did in than Gruden when it came down to that situation.
Right. I have faith in Harbaugh, but I don't like AB because when you mess with chemistry, there's only been one coach in the past 30 years that was able to do it. That was Phil Jackson with Rodman and all those personalities in Chicago. If you mess with chemistry, it's just you jack everything up. I'm for a no on Antonio Brown. You're more open to it. Let's go to conference finals AFC. Who do you got? Predictions?
Conference AFC. I'm going with the champs. I don't see nobody beating them yet.
Okay, who you got in the conference championship?
Conference championship. I have Baltimore and I have Kansas City.
That's who I've got. And the NFC. Who have you got?
NFC, I have San Francisco and New Orleans.
New Orleans, that's not a bad pick.
Yeah.
Tampa Bay's got to play them twice, and I still think Drew Brees is effective down there. They've got one of the top 5 wide receivers in Michael Jackson. I think that the question with them is going to be on defense. They also have one of the top 3 coaches in the NFL. In the NFC Championship game, I'm going with Green Bay. I think it's going to be the swan song, I think, for Aaron Rodgers. And then I'm going with the 49ers in another year to mature and another year to work out some of the kinks with Jimmy Garoppolo, who should still be a Patriot if it wasn't for Bob Kraft making crazy decisions. Strip malls, crazy decisions in the Super Bowl. Who you got? Give me your 2 teams and who you got winning it.
Super Bowl, I have Kansas City and I have San Francisco, and I am still going with the defending champs.
Kansas City.
Kansas City.
Wow, that's such a popular pick. Last year, before the playoffs started, remind everyone the 2 teams that I picked to go to the Super Bowl. Oh, come on. I had the 49ers, and I had KC, and I had the 49ers winning it. And they were winning it in the fourth quarter, but I lost. That's fine. I'm taking, in the Super Bowl, Baltimore. I'm taking Baltimore in the AFC. I'm taking San Francisco, and I've got Baltimore and Lamar Jackson running into the history books as our new producer, Zach Alicious, shakes his head and says no. He's back there thinking that the Tampa Bay Lightning are going to win the Super Bowl because he's such a Lightning fan and he doesn't realize we're talking about the NFL, which means not for long if you're picking against me. It's going to be Baltimore and San Francisco. Chris, what else is going on in the world of sports?
Well, in the world of sports, we generally we don't really discuss people's shoe game or sneaker game, but I'm going to talk about my guy PJ Tucker. PJ Tucker has went down to Orlando. The guy brought with him a bag full of 100 sneakers. And for those who don't know who PJ Brown is, he actually plays for the
Tucker.
PJ Tucker. I'm PJ Brown. PJ Tucker. He actually plays for the Houston Rockets, and this guy has over 4,000 pairs of shoes. The most he's ever paid for a pair of shoes is $36,000. And a quick story: DeMar DeRozan, after the San Antonio Spurs had a pair of Jordans, rare Jordans, this guy actually tried to pay $10,000 to buy the sneakers off his feet. PJ, man, you got to save some shoes for the rest of us, guy.
Chris, what else is going on in the world of sports today?
And, in the rest going on in the world of sports, you see I'm rocking my KC hat. This is in regards to my guy, Pat Mahomes, actually taking some of that money that he just made and actually making an investment to be a minority owner in KC. This is a great investment. The guy's looking long term. And this is, young folks, this is what you do with your money.
4 years ago, he was in a dormitory somewhere in Lubbock, Texas.
Exactly.
Using his head and shoulders, wishing he was in a commercial with Troy Polamalu. Now he's buying part of a Major League Baseball team. We are back here on Mondays and Thursdays on YouTube. We had live shows before. We're posting them now every Monday night and Thursday night. Look for us. Subscribe today. Hit the notification button. Be sure to get caught up on all of our shows. We'll be right back here on Monday night. We're going to have a monster college football, pretty much college football show for you. Breaking down all the conferences, Heisman picks, who we like. That music can mean only one thing. It's time to thank our support staff. The man on the board, Zach Alicious, doing a great job for us tonight. My co-host, Chris Roberts. El Presidente, Chet 40 for all of us here in the first round. Thank you for being a part of our show. Remember, subscribe, hit the notification button. We'll be right back here Monday night. Great content. College football will look for you to join us here. Until then, take care, everybody.